everyone. Welcome to this special business meeting on Tuesday, January 22nd. We have a short but important agenda today. As always, we are meeting on the traditional territory of the Squamish Nation, from Squamish, Squamish, May I have a motion to adopt the agenda? Moved by Councillor French, second by Councillor Stoner. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. First up, we are going to finalize our strategic plan. This is the first time it's seen the light of day. It's now out in the public. I will be speaking to this plan tomorrow at the chamber lunch. So, Council, better make sure I'm seeing the right things tomorrow. I'll turn it over to you, Ms. Lende.
Thank you, Mayor Elliott. I'd like to thank Council. The process was enjoyable for staff, and we're ourselves quite excited to see a new strategic plan. It's very focused. Trying to think now the number of workshops we had. It was 4, I believe, with Council. To go from the process for the benefit of the public was Council started out at the very beginning choosing OCP objectives that were priorities for councillors in terms of moving the dial over the 4-year term. So the OCP is a long-term vision. In terms of those objectives, what does Council want to prioritize in terms of those OCP objectives? And that's over the workshops where we filter down to these 4 priority areas, overarching priority areas, and then underneath are the specific goals that Council wants to achieve over the next 4 years. There is an asterisk beside some of those goals, which we discussed around. We don't yet have baseline measurements to apply specific numbers to what you want to achieve, but we'll be determining those over the next year. Ongoing priorities on the left are those things that came out of last Council's strategic plan or our master plans that Council wanted to ensure we kept our eye on the ball, so to speak, as staff, that those did not get lost. And then, of course, the introduction, Mayor Elliott, from you, which includes something that I believe is important to all of us, truth and reconciliation, not a specific goal necessarily, but more part of our culture as an organization to keep that top of mind. Wordsmithing was a big part of it, and making the goals specific and measurable and aspirational. And outside of that, I will turn it over to you. The other thing that I think everyone's excited about is that it's a plan on a page, well, 1 page. And I do, before I turn it over to Council, have to give our communications team major kudos for helping with some wordsmithing, formatting, and of course, our favorite graphics employee center, K&A, who puts this together for us and makes it look gorgeous.
Thank you. Council, this is your opportunity to just celebrate it or comment on it or suggest some final changes, hopefully minor. Or else I got to change my whole presentation tomorrow. It'll be up late tonight. Councillor Stone.
I guess I was just reading the final parts of the address because I hadn't gotten there yet. But overall, I am really excited about this plan. I think that there was give and take in narrowing it down to making it specific and measurable. And there's still a little ways that we have to go in terms of the measurable piece for some of these goals. But overall, I think it really does a very good job of narrowing down some of the key areas that I know I certainly heard from our constituency through the election campaign were key priorities for our community. So I'm excited that we have this in place to help drive and direct the next 4 years in term. A key piece of it will be coming back to it on a regular basis, keeping us in check. And so I think that's really helpful to have in place. And so thanks to Council colleagues for the robust discussions that we had through the process, and to staff for helping guide us through it. Thank you.
I'm really proud of this plan. It's ambitious, and I think it was our first also opportunity to work together. And I know that there's things on this list that were reluctantly added by some members of the council. And I know there's some pieces that were left off that were a big discussion as well. So I'm really happy with the compromise we got here, and I think it showed to me that we're taking the first step to be able to do the work to actually accomplish a high percentage of these goals and to do this work. And I look forward to doing that over the next 4 years. And I think the next understanding the baseline measurements over the next 12 months will be an interesting process, and setting our benchmarks from there in those areas where we do have some baselines to establish. And then we'll have a clear vision of exactly how much work we have to do in those areas. But I'm excited to get to work on this and see it through.
A happy possible side benefit of creating this document is the team building exercise that we all participated in. And I think that one of the things that came out of that for me was the strength of this team and the relationships that we have built. This was a very smooth process, and it was one that was very much based on consensus, and it was one that we did this in a non-contentious way. And I think that sets us up quite nicely for the next, through to the end of our term, as a team and as a group, and as a bunch of people who will get things done. I think it's a great start for us.
Yes, Councilor Lutz.
Thank you. Well, I wanted to echo some of those comments, but also I am very impressed with the simplicity of this, because this is user-friendly for me compared to previous strategic plans that we've had, which have been much more complicated, and so it's a little harder to follow, frankly. And I think it was a good exercise for this council. It was a respectful discussion. It was give and take all around. And I think that is very important, and that can't be underestimated. And thank you for leading us there.
Thank you. Councilor Banger.
Yeah, it was quite an enjoyable process. I like these kinds of discussions, and it was a good group to work through this with. I am really eager to actually start seeing it. You know, some of these things we can't wait on. We should have, globally, should have been dealing with some of these things quite a long time ago, and so I just want to really get running on these things. A couple comments. One, for me, a big piece, a value that's, from my perspective, underlying some of this is an equity piece, and I think that's something that I expect to see, and I think we will see out of this strategic plan. I also think on some of these things, although this is a district strategic plan, a council strategic plan, it's going to require the community as a whole supporting us, doing their own pieces along with this, and it'll be a community effort to really make the real progress we see here. And so, you know, it's important that as a municipality we do even better on our greenhouse gas emissions, but as a whole community we need to get those down. And you know, on housing, as a municipality we'll have some solutions as we move forward, but you know, community developers can start forward there too, and I think there's examples throughout. So I'm eager to get working on this as a district and as a community.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilor Anderson.
Yes, I have been one of the parties that have advocated attention to heritage specifically in the strategic plan. During our recent election campaign, it came up a number of times in community discussion. However, I'd like to point out that although it is not specifically addressed here, in fact it is. We have an arts and cultural programming referenced here, which will include some attention to heritage aspects. We received a presentation earlier today on a library strategic plan which dedicates significant attention to heritage resources accessed from the library and the library is engaged with. Mayor Elliott has invited consultation and conversation regarding heritage with the local heritage community. One of the things that might come out of such conversation is we map out what we already have in terms of a heritage policy and strategy, and better map it out to understand what we have and what needs to be done. So I'm satisfied otherwise that we've covered a lot here. I would ask, I wonder how we might characterize what's new with this strategy relative to the previous council's strategy, but it is also a different format and a different approach to things as well.
Thank you. And it is hard to compare. They're quite different. So yeah, I'm not going to comment on that. What I can say about last council's plan and this one, and what they will have in common, is that it does direct work and focus. And that is probably fundamentally the most important role, is that when we weigh priorities and staff are allocating time in their operational plans, this is the thing that guides that progress and helps us to move the ball on all of these things. I'm really pleased with where it turned out. I'm excited to talk about this at the Chamber tomorrow. I think there is something for everyone in this plan, and I think if you look at the goals we've outlined, they're so interconnected. You know, it's hard to separate the economy from the housing piece. It's hard to separate the climate and environment goals from economy and from neighborhood connectivity. So, you know, when we work on one, we are actually going to impact them all, and that's one of the things that I really love about this plan. It was fun working with all of you on this plan and our staff. It was a great opportunity to get to know each other, and I hope future councils do this right off the bat, is spend some time working together on this. I know that we will, you know, wrestle with this over the years as we bring it back and revisit it. Things change in the community, and sometimes that redirects our focus, but this is a really great start, and I think hits the key priorities that we heard during the election campaign, and certainly that we know through our own experience priorities here. So I hate to make a text change, but I'm going to suggest that on the ongoing priorities that we do marine strategy and add the word implementation, because we actually have the strategy. It's the action part of that that I think is important. And I almost want to add a bullet that says, and so much more. I don't know, so it's hard, because that I have a slide that I'm presenting tomorrow with all of our master plans and things that are underway and things that are on deck, and it's like the super busy slide. So in some respect, I'm glad those bullet points are there, and also they don't even capture the work being done. So, but anyway, that one small change is the word implementation. I think it's important.
Do you want us to add and so much more as?
We could call it ongoing priority highlights, which suggests there's lots more, or
Thank
there
you.
is more.
Thank you for that. That makes me feel better.
With 3 dots, so it sounds like it's
And on and on and on.
Other duties as required.
And then just in the first column, you see how the bullets line up with that last one doesn't come down far enough to line up with reduce the percentage of the workforce. Otherwise,
Just to the layout, and I think the introduction was great, and I didn't have a chance, yeah, but that's not something that we got to that we discussed at length. But I was expecting somewhere where we put our names to this besides just the district of Squamish. As far as, is there somewhere that we're going to put?
See this white space down here?
Are we going to?
Your signatures are going down.
Okay, that's where the.
I think symbolically it's really important for all of us to sign this.
Yeah, I was looking for an empty space to sign the name next to, because I was. Okay, so that's what this
That is
zone
that
is.
white
That's
space.
what's going to be there, and then it will no longer be there. Roger.
Should council want to endorse it today and sign it, I can have these changes made while you do the rest of the agenda.
Yes, would you like that, council?
Sure.
Get those minor changes made and then we'll sign it tonight? Okay. So add implementation, add, what was your wording?
Ongoing priority highlights.
Ongoing priority highlights. And then just fix the, make sure the bullets line up on that first column.
Do you want dot 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 after highlights? No.
And then-
Take out the
No,
If you were to ask me, I would say.
And we'll take out the word draft, yes. Okay.
Yeah, this is the, what it'll look like.
Councilor Stoner?
I do appreciate that there is sunshines in each of the icons.
Is that true?
Always sunny.
I guess that was cute.
But there was snowflakes.
It's happy.
It is happy.
Are we gonna
Councilor
leave the signatures just in open space? We have a name underneath each one we sign. Some,
Just do it freehand.
okay, some of them are more legible than others.
People can guess whose they are.
It's been a test.
Yeah. Ms. Monday.
And I've heard a recommendation that you shouldn't sign your regular signature because people can steal it and forge it when it's online.
Now I'm gonna have to practice a fake signature.
A fake signature.
I have an alternate.
You do? That's, now that begs a whole bunch of questions. Anyway,
Yeah, not the signature you used for checks as an example. You should do something different.
Ms. Arthurs, do we need a motion to approve it, or should we wait till we sign it? I mean, there's no motion on here, but
If you, today's the day you want to actually approve this, endorse and approve and release, do it today, make a motion, we can.
because it's a special
just-
meeting.
Yeah, it's an official meeting, and just having the signatures, that's just photocopying type of an exercise, doing those final tweaks, absolutely.
Okay.
Our graphic designer has left the building.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, we can still approve it. Yeah, you can.
Mhm.
We'll sign it at our next business meeting. I can work on my fake signature then. So, council, someone want to put forward a motion? Moved by Councilor French that we endorse and accept the strategic plan with the minor edits we made today. Seconded by,
Sorry, I have a question in the midst of this.
okay, just let me get it seconded and then we'll, seconded by Councilor Race. Okay, Councilor Hubbard.
Just going to the signing, is it important that we sign the actual document? Can we sign something, the graphic can put it on there and we can release it? I don't want to hold, I'm looking to get this out in an official capacity without waiting till our next meeting, which is, starts bumping things.
So what I might do after this meeting is we'll all sign a blank piece of paper and so that we can have it, but I actually am going to pass it around at our next regular business meeting so that people actually sign. Is that be good?
Yeah, as long as we can get it, as long as we can get it out into circulation as soon as possible. So,
Okay,
it's the spirit of that.
excellent, good suggestion. Any more discussion? Call the question, all those in favor? Opposed, motion carries. Okay, next up, we had a discussion last week about the province is requesting feedback on their ride-hailing services. And so we have a letter here from Ms. Gunn, who drafted this for us to provide feedback to the province. So basically it suggests that there is a class 4 driver's license requirement for ride-hailing vehicles, that we look at, that the province look at this idea of service availability in communities that are close to more attractive urban centers. And finally, that the requirements for data collection, which the province was going to collect, actually becomes public information so that local governments also have access to that information. So those are the 3 asks in our letter, and I just want to check in with council if this is complete before it gets sent back to council. Council Pegdale.
Well, I read got partway through the link you sent yesterday, and there are some interesting things in there, and basically it was a paper that discussed what they've seen in the state so far with, I guess, TNCs, Transit Network Companies, I think is what that acronym is. And it was an interesting read, and it did bring up some additional things in my mind. I didn't necessarily agree with some of the conclusions of that paper, because it seemed, I think what that paper was missing is, I think we're at the early adopter kind of trailblazer phase, and I don't know that what's been observed so far will hold true moving forward as this really rolls out. And I think some of the key things that jumped out at me is the real opportunity here to incentivize EVs and battery vehicles and automated vehicles, and carrying those things through. And I think especially if you're talking about driverless electric vehicles that effectively don't need parking, some of the concerns they had about increased traffic and that start to go away. And so I would hope the province is really thinking about how are we using this to incentivize a move to a lower carbon future with electric vehicles, maybe incentivizing manufacturing here, incentivizing technological advances in terms of automated vehicles and all those sorts of things. I think there's a whole bunch of opportunity in this space beyond just the obvious ride-hailing piece of it. And I would hope that as a province we're thinking about that, and even locally as a municipality looking where we might fit into driving some of these things forward.
Just building on your comment there, I'm wondering if one of the things we include is that the province is actually monitoring the impact on congestion as part of the introduction of these services. But something just to ponder, Councillor Harper.
The sort of the second part of this, as far as the service areas go, is I've been thinking about a lot. I think it makes some assumptions that the reporting and the data is going to feed into, as far as where these people choose to that want to become operators or choose to operate. And I think that putting some incentives behind, if we're only going to make 3 points, I think putting some emphasis on electric or hybrid or something is of greater concern than this is sort of a market demand thing. And we talk about the workforce on the highway going to work. There's people travel to where the work is. We don't want to necessarily, I don't know, I'm not super comfortable with that position, and even though that may be a factor, I think number 3, which is the sort of the sharing of the data, could maybe inform some future regulation there. But until this is happening, we're putting the cart before the horse as far as assuming what that data, what those pressures could be. And I think that something around electric, hybrid, green for those vehicles is of higher priority in my mind. So that's any thoughts around that? So I would propose that we would remove, either add a 4th bullet point or remove sort of that middle piece in exchange for.
We're not limited to 3 points. We could write a 4-page letter.
Well, I know, but if we want to be concise, which I'm a fan of, we can take that piece out, or maybe 4 points is fine. But I think that something, some regulation that way from the onset would be great.
Okay, any comments?
Well, further to Councillor Herford's point, and I think I was the one that initially raised this section, I do see this as sort of maybe a transitional problem, and I think we'll see this transition move quite quickly. But I think, the odds that it will leave a town like Squamish without service, at the very least, maybe highlight that is, I think, likely to be a transitional problem. It's maybe not a long-term problem, or a lot of these sorts of problems there's technological solutions in the whole ride hailing, especially as we move to automated vehicles, which I see, you know, driver ride hailing is a pretty short-term thing at this point. I think automated vehicles is an inevitable and pretty soon companion to this.
So you would want to qualify the second point by saying this is likely a short-term concern, or leave it as is?
I guess leave it as is, or just raise the comment that because I see this as a transitional problem, I'm more comfortable taking it out of the Council Herfer's comment, if we feel that 3 points is just more impactful.
Councilor French?
I would support taking that whole paragraph out as well. Just, there are more than a few things in there that I just don't support.
This one about
As a small
access
town,
to service.
Oh,
it starts with as a small town, sandwiched between Vancouver and Whistler.
One of the things the province is asking about is that service availability. So do small towns, do we have any concerns about it? But the market sort of would drive this, and so if no one wants to drive Uber cars in Squamish, they don't have to. If they want to go to Vancouver or Whistler on a Saturday night, that's where they're going to go. It's pretty hard to police, which we say in our prayer.
Well, just building on that point, if there is a demand, then someone should rise to that demand. I think it's about having sort of the overall transportation system being nimble enough to sort of respond to market demand. So if there's an underserviced market, then someone's going to service that. And until we have data that says otherwise, I don't know that we need to get out there with that point in the middle.
Okay. I'm hearing 3 people say remove that paragraph. Any other? I would remove it. Okay, so we'll strike that paragraph. But what I am hearing in the finally paragraph is that we do collect data on usage in all communities, and if service availability isn't there for all communities, is that the case? Or do we say anything about it? Councilor?
Well, once we have the data, then we can figure out what it tells us. I don't know, we need to presuppose what the data is going to tell us in this case. And then I would like to have a piece in there about, without assuming in this day and age that someone taking on, looking to do a bunch of, to participate in these services from a driver's standpoint, I would think that they would want to do it through the lowest emissions, lowest operating cost vehicle, which is probably going to be a hybrid or ideally an electric vehicle. But I think there should be some language in there that would incentivize the vehicle that they're using to be that. I don't know, we can happy to discuss how that wording is. I don't know how everyone else feels there, so I'd like to sort of throw that out there and see if we have if anyone else feels that we should include something like that. I feel like that's a missing piece here. Or are we just assuming that the economy's going to, again, free market's going to look after that because that's the most economical way to do that?
Yeah, it's a challenge. I haven't seen these companies insist that their drivers drive anything but what they want to drive, like the car sitting in their driveway that they want to make money off of. So at the same time, I think that there's perhaps a comment on how does introducing ride hailing impact the Clean BC plan and emissions targets. And I'd be curious to know if this is going to increase traffic, if this is going to increase people driving around, then we should be measuring whether it's helping or hindering those targets. That would be my suggestion, to go sort of big picture rather than trying to dictate at the market level. Councilor?
Sorry, I appreciate that suggestion. So if we back that out, I guess I was getting at the emissions piece and the environmental impact of that. So if we back it up to aligning with other larger provincial planning and not contradicting cars themselves at the same time, then I don't know how we put that in. No, it's getting harder to say because it should just be like, you generally don't make plans to get to each other, but I don't know if we need to make that, if we're only making 2 points.
Well, I think there's a short paragraph here that says that the introduction of ride-hailing services should not negatively impact BC's climate goals, and the province should be monitoring the impact of ride-hailing services on those targets, something to that effect, and reporting back on that. Because you see from some of these reports that it's increasing traffic, not decreasing, and while that may be a short-term impact, we should know what that trend looks like over time. So, you know, is it leading to more people idling in their cars, waiting to pick up passengers? I don't know what it looks like in Squamish or this. So, would people be in agreement if we struck that as a small town paragraph and added one about aligning ride-hailing services with the emissions targets for the province? Okay.
And practically speaking, I think it could only happen at the licensing stage, so the question is whether the province wants to somehow incentivize some cleaner vehicles. I wouldn't get too specific about that. I mean, I don't know how long a vehicle would go before it has to be charged, for example. Does it have to be charged 2 or 3 times a night on a busy night? Is it practical? So, and that could change over time, of course.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, most of the cabs down in the Lower Mainland are now at least hybrids, so even that is an improvement on past schedule. All right, any other changes? So I'm hoping I don't need to bring this back. So if council's okay with me striking that paragraph, adding another one, and I can send this off to the province because we have a deadline.
Resolution?
Yes. So moved by Council Race, seconded by Council Harper. Thanks for your input.
Charles can draft the resolution.
Oh yeah, that Mayor Elliott finalized the letter by striking the paragraph that begins as a small town and adds a paragraph indicating that we suggest that the province aligns ride-hailing services with their climate emissions targets or Clean BC goals. Clean BC, that's their new term.
What's that climate?
Emission reduction goals. No, GHG emission reduction goals, sorry. Something to that effect. I'll get it right.
Yeah.
It'll look good.
I'll just, similar to our feedback we get to the SLRD, not naming a particular one, so I like bringing it back up to greenhouse gas.
Okay. Greenhouse gas. And then we also suggest that the province look at incentivizing cleaner vehicles at the licensing stage. Okay, that's the motion. We got that. Did we get a second first?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, all right. Question?
Is the phrase cleaner vehicle, I'm just thinking that might not be.
Lower
precise.
emission vehicles.
I think that states it much better.
I'll get the window ready. Okay, lower emission vehicles. Councilor Bengo?
Is there any appetite to consider something also about technological economic opportunities in this?
Such as?
The whole automated vehicle piece, which I think is probably inevitable, but do we want to capitalize on that or not?
If you can put that into words, because I'm at a loss of how to do that,
Okay.
I'm willing to listen. What are you suggesting? Because this is just on ride-hailing services, and I don't think any of their 4 questions were specifically about autonomous vehicles.
Yeah, I don't really think that's realistically a separable thing, I guess is my concern. I do worry that there's been a whole bunch of potential money and resources sorting out ride hailing, and then there's no drivers in 5 years. So, okay, I'm not sensing there's huge desire.
I just don't know if you can put it into a sentence that I would include in the letter. I'll go to Councilor Herbert, so think about that.
I was going to suggest that if and or when there's a move to these driverless vehicles, I would suggest there's going to be review of the licensing process and the impacts of that. At that point, it would be a fairly major story of public interest. I don't think this is going to be something that through this process are just going to gradually transition into this, and it's a little sleight of hand. I'd imagine that's a wholesome discussion on its own as far as rolling out a province-wide autonomous vehicle endorsement for ride hailing. So I don't feel that I agree that it's coming, but I don't feel that it's key to include in this particular letter.
Okay. Councilor?
Respectfully, I think it's a bigger conversation that doesn't fit here.
Okay. General consensus? You okay with that?
Mhm.
Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next up, we have some bylaw adoptions to do. The District of Squamish Housing Agreement Bylaw 1111 Pioneer Way, bylaw number 2656/2018. Moved by Councilor Race, seconded by Councilor French. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. The District of Squamish Notice Enforcement.
Sorry, I had a question about that one.
Oh, okay. What is it?
Just a little bit more broadly, but I was wondering if there was anything to get precedent or mechanism by which we can actually implement a date within which those market rental units have to come to market when we enter into housing agreements more broadly.
The short answer is no. You can't compel people. The permitting system allows people to build. You can't actually compel them to build. So there isn't an easy way of doing that.
One of the controls we do have is when we do phase development agreements, council can look at where the affordable housing shows up in those. And that is something in rezoning we can negotiate in terms of the phasing of affordable units if it's a larger development. So that's an opportunity where we can influence. District of Squamish Notice Enforcement Bylaw number 2418/2015. This is an amendment bylaw 2651/2019. Moved by Councilor French, seconded by Councilor Race. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, so we had some correspondence piling up, and because we didn't have a regular business meeting until the 5th, staff wanted to make sure that some of these came before us so that they got some attention. So first is the correspondence from C. Burnett and local transit schedule and the rideshare connector buses, and that we refer this to staff.
So moved.
Moved by Councilor French, seconded by Councilor Herford. No discussion? Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. We also had an email from D. Anderson about the new bike lanes on Government Road and Queensway, and I know we've gotten some consistent ongoing feedback around that, that we refer it to staff for follow-up. Moved by Councilor Stoner, seconded by Councilor Herford. Can I just ask staff, when are we going to get the feedback back on those pilot projects?
On that particular,
The Queensway one was a pilot project.
probably Q2.
Q2, okay.
To give it enough time to sort of, I mean, right now we're in winter, so it's creating some maintenance issues in winter. So we'll see it through 2 seasons, and I suspect Q2 will come back and report whether or not we continue or revert.
Okay. Great. I had some questions about how it's been with the snow and plowing and keeping those bike lanes clear, so that's great timing on that. All those in favor? Oh, did you have a question?
I just wanted to speak to it, and it kind of ties in with the transit thing as well. I really enjoy hearing from the people that are using this, and I find that for the amount of people we have out in the using all these services, whether it's our active transportation routes or the transit system, like we need this feedback so we can make it better. And I know at some point I'm going to be will be overwhelmed with letters on an issue, but for how many things are running up there, I've been struck with how little we actually get back. So this is really going to help us make it better. And we do make these changes, we can hopefully just be more successful as we implement them. So learn from it and get better.
Great, thank you. All those in favor? Opposed, motion carries. I know, I love community feedback. It's great when people really. Okay, our third letter is from Mike Bosa. The developer is Solterra. They are building up in the business park. And this was quite a lengthy letter, and it was a request for some zoning changes in the Sea to Sky retail park. So this is like not a small thing. So staff, so it's going to be referred to the Director of Community Planning to discuss options with Solterra, but I also think, and council, because this is our decision and discretion here, so can we just say that the motion actually reads to discuss options with Solterra and council?
Yes, so you'll have that opportunity when the zoning bylaw is back in front of you. Is it next week? Coming up very quickly is sort of our work plan for the zoning bylaw. Of course, this could be part of it.
Yeah, I
So
guess
you'll
I was
have
wondering whether this is part of it or this is going to be treated separately.
It's not part of it right now.
We would treat it separately if they make an application to rezone. Which is always their option, and Mr. Bosa knows that. So, I mean, I'm meeting with him tomorrow. We can certainly discuss the letter with him tomorrow.
All right. Thank you, Councillor Anderson.
I just wanted to comment that I think it's a very thoughtful letter, and it's a letter that reflects a developer with a good dialogue with the community and observing the trends around. I would certainly prefer that the implications are significant, and that it definitely be, my preference would be go to the zoning bylaw review, and that Mr. Bosa be apprised of that sympathy.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Council, does someone move the motion? Moved by Councillor Ray, seconded by Councillor Stoner. Any more comments? All those in favor? Opposed, motion carries. We had an email from our Perron on January 9th about our recent snow clearing effort. I responded to that. Does it still need to, is it being referred to staff for just feedback?
For feedback, but the response, we consider the response part of it complete.
Okay. Moved by Councillor Ray, seconded by Councillor Hooper. All those in favor? Opposed, motion carries. R. Lescombe provided some feedback on parking downtown. That staff, this is specifically around parking for the staff at Eagle View Veterinary Clinic. Can this be referred to staff or follow-up? Moved by Councillor Stoner, seconded by Councillor French. Any comments?
Yes.
Councillor French?
I note that the author is with us. And in light of our previous comments about how much we support feedback like this, I just want to acknowledge that the person who actually wrote the letter took time to be here to hear the conversation.
I did.
Do you want to come to the table and say anything?
It's my first ever council meeting.
Oh, well, if you'd like to say a few words, we're happy for you to come to the table if you want to address your letter personally.
I wasn't prepared for that.
You don't have to, it's just the microphones are at the table, so, but we're happy for you to provide a few comments, like 5 minutes or less would be okay.
5 minutes.
Just introduce yourself and who you are.
Okay, hi, I'm Robin. Thanks for having me. I was just putting it out there so that you guys could discuss or maybe let Squamish know the plan for parking. I know there's that map with different areas that we can park for the day. A lot of them are in residential areas though, and they are kind of backed up with multiple people living at each home. And then my staff at the vet hospital work 10-hour days, so they can't really go and park somewhere for 2 hours and then move again and again. So I was just wondering if there was a plan coming down the pipes for a better parking space for businesses downtown.
We do have a parking strategy, I don't know, but this motion is to have staff follow up with you.
Yeah.
And provide that feedback.
Great, thank you.
Thanks for your letter. We do like
Thanks.
community feedback. So I think we had that moved and seconded, Councillor Pettingill?
Well, can I ask a question?
Sure.
So, I mean, one of the things that is, questions I've had is whether we're sizing our transit capacity to the parking approach we're taking. And so just would appreciate your thoughts if we were to try and resolve this through not necessarily more parking, but through more frequent transit options and so on. What would you feel about that?
That would be fair. Yeah, so some of our staff live in Brackendale, some in the Highlands. Those of us who live downtown can obviously walk to work, but yeah, if transit was better, that would be all around great. I know from my history of taking the bus and things, if you miss one, then there's like a 45 or hour wait, and sometimes they don't go late enough in the day too, so if we have an emergency at the end of the day, staff aren't out of there till 7 p.m., so sometimes it's hard to hop on a bus that way, but that would help.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All those in favor? Opposed, motion carries. Thank you for your letter. Thanks for coming.
Thanks.
I'm going to skip the next one. I'm in conflict, so we'll go to number 7, M. Edwards, parking in the Garibaldi Highlands, that it be referred to staff. Moved by Councillor French, seconded by Councillor Stoner. All those in favor? Opposed, motion carries. I'm going to recuse myself on letter number 6. I am on the board of the Whistler Center for Sustainability. So if you are chairing this portion of the meeting, you can do it from there.
Yeah, I guess I can. So the recommendation is that the correspondence from the organization dated January the 10th regarding the funding for the Squamish Lillooet food project be referred to budget for discussion, and that finance provide advice as to how this request fits the community enhancement grant policy requests. Been moved by Councillor Race, seconded by Councillor Stoner. Any discussion? Yes.
I am curious how this fits in with the community enhancement grant policy. I'm wondering if maybe Ms. Matthews can speak to that.
Thank you, through the chair. I'm wondering that myself. It's one of these, sometimes those partnership type things we go into because it's our mandate, someone else's mandate, and we'll use operational budgets or contingencies to do it. But if it were to come through the community enhancement grant now, we would expect that they would fill an application like everyone else. They could come and be a delegate to you with that application, and you could determine if you'd like to use your contingency. So,
Any other questions? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Passed unanimous. Thanks, Gary.
Terminate the meeting first, gets back.
Nah. I think that's a little beyond my role.
Thank you, Councillor French.
I left the termination for you.
It's always a favorite. Okay, motion to terminate. Moved by Councillor Ray, second by Councillor Everett. All those in favor? Opposed, motion carries. Thanks, you guys, for a good but long day.